Hello, my name is Ray Lopez. I'm your City Council representative for District 6. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our program this morning. Today I'm very excited to have as my guest William McManus, Chief of the San Antonio Police Department, and later Joe Jones, Chief of the Fire Training Academy. On today's show we'll discuss our city's first responders and the wonderful work they're doing to keep our city and streets safe. Now I'd like to welcome to the show my very first guest, Chief McManus. Chief, welcome.
Councilman, thanks.
Good to see you. It's always a pleasure to see you in these kinds of surroundings as opposed to on occasion that I see out in the street where you're out there actually doing crime fighting and trying to work with the community to identify what the issues are and how we best attack them. No pun intended there, but how do we bring them under control? And I want to thank you for the work that you've done in not only in District 6 but in the entire city. So thanks to you and to the folks in your department for that.
Yes, sir.
In keeping with that, what kind of crime and is there a seasonal thing that we should be looking for as we kind of get out of the summer season, starting to move into the holiday season and the like? Does crime have a tendency of shifting or changing, and what should maybe some folks start to look for that's a little different?
It does. It shifts during the holiday seasons. It shifts during the summertime. Burglaries, both car burglaries and burglaries of houses and other buildings. They tend to be somewhat seasonal, but overall, our crime is down here in San Antonio.
Well, yeah, I know that it is, and sometimes you think, well, maybe it's down in one spot but up in another. So citywide, have you seen that it's consistent, that the crime rate has dropped?
Yes, citywide crime is down. It's a kind of a fragile decrease because it could pop back up at any time. We do quite a few different initiatives. We're always trying to stay ahead of the trends.
Right, and I guess that really is what kind of leads me to the next question, and that's, the trends. I mean, how is it, or how difficult is it, I guess, and how do you go about trying to predict where crime is going to be, what kind of crime it's going to be, and where it's going to be? I mean, what kind of methodology is used out there?
Sure, well, let's take the most frequently talked about crime at community meetings. Car burglaries, graffitis, drug dealing. We try to educate the public where in cases where they may leave some property in their car that's visible from the outside. Mm-hmm. And there are people who break into cars for a living. You don't wake up one day and decide, I think I'll break into a car one day just to see what it's like. You're out there either fueling a drug habit or just trying to get money. And again, it's a crime of opportunity. People work the parking lots of different malls or different hotels looking for property. If they don't see it, they're not going to break in.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense, and I know you've done a lot of work to get that message out. Again, as we get into the holiday season, I guess the same can be said as we get into the summer season now, come springtime, where
Right.
things are a little different. You might make a quick jaunt to the store, to the mall, and you wind up leaving your keys in your car,
Right.
or worse, your
Right.
window down or whatever. Now, those are all things that are pretty standard, in the crime prevention arena. Mm-hmm. What are some of the new techniques that you've been seeing, either happening in other parts of the country or maybe things that you're considering here for San Antonio, that might get us to to continue this downward trend of criminal activity in general?
Well, crime fighting goes through certain periods. There's community policing, there's problem-oriented policing, there's hotspot policing.
Right.
There's saturation patrol. There's what has proven through studies to be most effective is targeted policing, targeting individuals as opposed to just general areas. So what we're going to be doing is we are actually going to be laying over targeted policing over hotspot policing. So we're going to be going after specific people in specific areas. So we hope that that'll be successful.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. You talked earlier about the majority of the types of questions or concerns that come up at the HOA meetings. What is something that you would want us to start to communicate at the HOA meetings in ways that the community can help you to do, and your department to do these kinds of new innovative crime fighting techniques? Mm-hmm.
Well, the community has always been helpful. We've got a great community here in San Antonio, and What they do now to assist is they do, cellular on patrol.
Right.
They do neighborhood watch. They come to the homeowners association meetings to stay up to speed on what's going on. Continue to call police when you see an issue or think you see an issue or a crime being committed. Work with your safe officers. The safe officers are the officers that will deal with chronic, long-standing problems in your neighborhood that are not necessarily handled best by a 911 call.
Right. The questions that comes up on a regular basis, or maybe one of the dilemmas, if you will, that the citizens have is, when do I call where, right? Everybody wants to try to get a police report or a activity that they see reported, but not sure, is this a 911 thing? Is this a 311 thing? Is this pick up the phone and call my safe officer? Because I know safe officers give their cell phones all the time. So is there any general guidelines you would kind of share with us on, how to make that determination? Is I'm out in the, in my neighborhood, I see something that potentially could be, how should I break down the, where do I call?
Sure. If it's a crime in progress, 911. If somebody's life or is in danger, or someone's in danger of being seriously injured, 911. Otherwise, 207 SAPD, or call your safe officer.
Good, good. Well, that makes sense, and that's the kind of information we could have to get to folks. I always tell them, well, regardless of where you call, the mistake is to not call.
Right.
If you get it into the wrong, if you will, area initially, eventually you'll learn what those things are.
Right.
And but the mistake would be not to call, not to engage our police department and our police officers, because they certainly understand.
Exactly.
That we're not that good oftentimes at doing the triage, if you will, on the kind of crime. So getting the call in is what's important.
Yes.
And getting it to the right place becomes secondary. Let me ask from a head count or manpower perspective, how are we doing?
We're doing well. Right now we have 2,375 police officers. We're getting ready to start an academy of 54 new cadets on Monday. That'll put our attrition down, or not our attrition, but our vacancies down to a very low number. So we're doing real well.
So if someone wanted to apply, perhaps I'm assuming that these cadets have already all been identified and gone through the testing and everything. In the future, if young men and women in San Antonio want to pursue that very worthy and rewarding career of being a peace officer, what would be the process, and how would they start to prepare themselves to be ready to be one of our officers?
SAPDcareers.com will get you to the website where it'll give you all the information to apply. But there's a physical part of it. You have to pass certain physical skills tests. There's the skills and knowledge test, the background, the polygraph. It's quite a rigorous process. But when you get in, I mean, if you're selected, then you've cleared a pretty big hurdle, and you're one of the few that makes it through.
Well, that's always been a case. I think, generally speaking, how many applicants do you have? Ultimately, how many of them do you wind up hiring? What's the typical ratio there?
Typically, out of 100 applicants, the average that we'll get is 10 out of 100 applicants.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, a lot of folks are applying, and there's a small, and I know that the job itself carries with it a lot of responsibility, but it's also a job that I think has a lot of reward in it. Not only is it a good paying job with good benefits, it also gives a good sense, at least the officers, all the officers that I talk about, say, certainly the pay is great, benefits are great, but that's not why we do this. We do this because of the commitment that we have for our community and the return that we get in that personal satisfaction of making a difference in our community. And I think that's what's made our police department and our city great.
We have one of the most caring police departments, and the payback is the support that we get from the community. It's outstanding. We are looking to hire women, minorities. We want as diverse a police department as we can possibly get, and we do have a very, very diverse police department as it is right now, but we want to keep that.
Well, I think it shows in the kind of attitude and really that relationship. I've often said at virtually all of our HOA meetings, And it's really consistent when an HOA creates an active environment within their homeowners, right, within the residents, and that they establish a relationship with, whether it's a safe officer, a code compliance officer, even our animal care officers. If they create a good relationship with them, crime typically is down. Quality of life is up in those communities. So working closely with those groups really does make a significant amount of improvement in our quality of life, and it's really up, up to the community to engage you. Although I know that you guys are out there knocking on doors as well, so I thank you for that, and the community certainly thanks you for that. Well, stay with us. We'll be back in just a short while to talk with Chief Jones. In the meantime, I want to thank Chief McManus for your great work, and look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Did you know that getting up and getting active for just 60 minutes a day is all it takes to help you get stronger, look better, and feel great?
Or that fresh fruits and veggies aren't just healthier and crunchier, they can taste better too?
Eating better and getting more active is easier than you think.
Yeah! Keep watching for some fun and easy ways to discover the magic of healthy living in your life.
America.
Let's get healthy together!
Really?
Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to our program. I'm your host, District 6 Councilman Ray Lopez. We're going to talk to Chief Jones now from the Training Academy. And Chief, thanks a lot for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for
we
having
enjoy the kind of work that you guys do, and we enjoy you being here. And we want to know a little bit about how exciting it is out there, because I can tell you, from being a little kid that big, I always wanted to get on a fire truck, and always wanted to be a fireman. And I think there's a lot of folks out there that feel the same way, and they see this really cool, job out there. And the reality of it, it's a tough job. It's a very difficult job, very, very challenging, very a lot of issues to understand. And we'll talk a little bit about that, and particularly as tell me a little bit about what you do there at the Training Academy and how your life is typically on any given day.
Well, I serve as the training chief for the San Antonio Fire Department at the current time, and basically what my job is to direct and coordinate and kind of bring everything together for the department in a training aspect. So if there's a need, or we identify a need, then it's kind of our responsibility to try and bring those needs together, in conjunction with everybody else. That's pretty much what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and I would imagine one way to identify the needs, and then consequently, I guess, the kind of training you have to deliver and the tools that you need to be able to deliver that training is what's happened in the past. How do you guys go about trying to figure out the things that may happen in the future? I mean, we all realize, there's obviously there's fires, there's accidents on the street, there's cars that blow up, there's all kinds of stuff. But as we move forward, other things come to the city from a catastrophic perspective. The nuances of terrorism, of more flammable stuff on the streets and things of that nature. How do you guys go about, I guess, identifying what those things are? Then how do you deliver or create a curriculum to make sure that our officers, our firemen that are out there are ready to meet the challenge?
Well, let me tell you, it's not easy.
I imagine not.
It's not easy at all. Trying to be progressively minded, try to look forward to what might be coming in the future. I mean, none of us can predict the future, right? We look at trends, we look at historical data, we look at nationwide trends. San Antonio is a very prepared city. The last thing that I recall, and this is like 5 years old, they were comparing us to New York City, and we were second in terms of preparedness to New York City. That's pretty big. In terms of how we look at the future, we look at what's happened to our city, we look at what's going on within our city, and we look at what might happen, what could happen. And we don't just think of, okay, well, water tables and, terrorist attacks and airplanes flying into buildings. We think outside the box on a lot of these things. We think, what are the really obscure things that could happen, and what kind of training needs would be needed to facilitate a appropriate response to a situation like that. And they range from things that seem minor to somebody that's not really keyed in to the catastrophic events that we've seen unfold nationwide. So it can be very challenging, but we have highly educated and very capable people within the department that we've got our eyes and ears open, and we're progressively minded, always looking to the future. And with that in mind, we stay in touch with our colleagues nationwide to try and stay ahead of the power curve instead of trying to be responsive.
Well, I know that recently, we get these nice little, email blasts that tells us what's going on, so that in case we get a phone call that says, I understand there's something happening on the northwest part of town or in the southeast part of town. Typically, there are exercises. Oftentimes, there are exercises you guys are conducting in conjunction with other departments and the like. How often do you guys do that? Is that something that's been proven to be beneficial?
Yes, absolutely. One thing that we've seen starting to emerge in the fire service, and even I'm not going to speak for PD, but generally in the service industry is this kind of multi-agency, regional type of response. You see these models set up. There's statewide task forces. There's regional assets like STRAC, Eric Epley's outfit. There's medical regional response teams, and what we're starting to see is the municipality working in conjunction with these smaller municipalities or these surrounding jurisdictions to try and work together to mitigate an issue or a problem and work through it. Because what might be a problem for San Antonio, say it was a hazmat incident, well, plume modeling, whichever way the plume's going, whichever way the smoke or the gas or whatever it may be is blowing, that could go into a surrounding community. So we're trying to have these kind of, sometimes they're tabletops, sometimes they're full-blown, vehicles and personnel incidents where we're out there and we're practicing. And what we're practicing for is, I always compare it to when I was a little boy and playing, I played soccer growing up, but let's use baseball for right now. When I was a little boy, I didn't know how to play baseball. How'd you learn how to play baseball? Well, I had to go to practice 3 times a week. I still wasn't any good come the weekend, but I went to practice during the week to try and figure out how to play in the ball game, right?
Right.
Well, that's very important for firefighters as well. If we're going to play well, come time to do it in the real world, then we have to practice, and we have to practice, perfect practice makes, perfect execution.
Well, there's no question. There's a lot that could be underscored several times. I'm going to share with you a real quick story that, when I first got on council, like most council folks, and in my case, I really wanted to go get on a fire truck. I didn't ever get on a fire truck.
You never have?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to come out.
I've been on one, but I'm not out on the highway. I actually followed around in the command truck and all that other kind of stuff.
Oh, not the command. You got to get on the fire trucks.
Yeah. But so on this one deal, I was the first time that I was out there driving around, and there was a call, and we made the call, and that actually happened to be just outside the city jurisdiction, and a gentleman in a construction site had fallen into a manhole. It wasn't an operating manhole yet, but it was a manhole that had been left uncovered. It was rainy and muddy and everything, and the crew showed up to try to get the gentleman out of there. It was a heavy fellow, had fallen into the manhole. So you guys figured out a way. They put this tripod out, and they did all kinds of stuff. Now, while I was sitting there watching, and I think I was being dragged into this incident a little bit more than normal because it was very muddy out there.
Oh,
and I was
yes.
wearing a suit and all that kind of
this
thing.
call. I remember
Well,
this call.
The impressive thing was not how well you guys worked together, but when I noticed that there was a shift change, and officers or firefighters that were standing out there in the rescue process actually changed shifts without even a change in the delivery of the rescue.
Yes.
And I said, the coordination my eyes quite honestly opened up to the kind of work that you guys do and the amount of training that has to happen to maybe be able to let those things happen seamlessly. I mean, there was a transition of a task without a shift change, without even noticing it. And that makes a big difference, particularly in an extended, perhaps not in that circumstance, but in an extended rescue attempt, whether it's a fire or something that takes hours or maybe even days to get under control. Shifts have to change because exhaustion and all those other things, and to be able to orchestrate that and execute it the way it was done there, really is a tribute to what you guys do at the fire department and the training department in particular.
Thank you.
So wanted to share that with you. I don't know how excited people would have gotten there, standing there watching that, but I certainly did, and it underscored the amount of work that you guys do. But let's shift gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about District 6. As a matter of fact, the training academy is in District 6.
Yes,
and,
it is.
We like to take credit for all the good work that you do, but realize that...
Take all the credit you want.
Well, there you go. But what we realize also that, obviously you guys are deployed citywide. Let's talk a little bit about, the number of fire stations that are out there today and some of the needs that you see as the growth in District 6 is starting to shift. For example, I go to different events, and everybody says, well, gee, the density of homes is getting greater. How are we going to deal with both police and fire, our first responders, to address that? The other areas are, the businesses are starting to change. Up 151, you're starting to see multi-level, facilities, hospitals. So if ever there was a disaster or a fire or anything, servicing those facilities, those buildings and the people in them becomes a little different. How do you see that happening, and can you talk a little bit to that of how we're preparing ourselves to manage that growth and
Sure.
Variation of need?
Well, as we all know, District 6 is growing. Population density is trending that direction, isn't it? And with that, you're starting to see, some growing pains, maybe what you would like to call it. But growing pains are good in a situation like that. Currently, there are 5 stations from the San Antonio Fire Department that occupy various regions of District 6, in addition to the Fire Training Academy. There's Fire Station 33, Fire Station 35, Fire Station 41, 44, and 45. Okay, now numbers don't really mean much, so let's talk a little bit about each individual station, and that'll kind of feed into how it's going to address future needs for District 6. So let's look at specifically Fire Station 33, 35, and 41. And the reason I want to look at those 3 is because those 3 are what we call within the fire service double companies, which means that they have a fire engine, the pumper, the one that carries water, an aerial, which means the ones with the giant ladder on top, and let's see, 33s, 35s, and 41s all have an ambulance unit as well. So those are pretty much as intensive as they get for fire stations, short of being a special operations station, which one of those also resides, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So these 3, 33s is located over off of 36th and 90.
Right.
35s, which is a double company. 35s, also a double company, is located off of Calabria and 410. And 41s is up in the Mainland-Tezel area. Okay. Now, what separates those 3 from 44s and 45s? Well, 44s and 45s are currently single companies. They have an engine company, and they also have paramedic units running out of there. 44s also has a brush truck because of our urban interface.
Right.
and our propensity for wildfires in San Antonio, you know, because we never get rain. And then when we do, what do we get?
Yeah.
We get a mosquito problem,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It's San Antonio. But anyways, what they did is they had the foresight to build 44s and 45s in a manner that can facilitate double companies. So as the growth, and who knows, maybe it's relocation, maybe it's growth and addition of additional units. I don't really have the final answer, but the nice thing is we had the foresight to build these stations for potential growth or reallocation of units or, you know, whatever may happen. So I think that that's important, looking at the potential growth for the San Antonio Fire Department. There's also plenty of room out there. Right now we're at 51 stations citywide. I know plans are in the works to get additional stations as our city grows. Our city is growing. You know, it's San
Well,
Antonio's-
it is, and that was exemplified by, we just went through budget not long ago, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about was exactly what was in there. As a matter of fact, you know, we're going to have to wrap up this segment, but there's so much to talk about. I want to invite you to come back, and where I'd like us to go next time is as you talk about the kinds of stuff and services that are being delivered from the different fire stations, the whole thing about EMS and the amount of services that is being delivered there, and really the need from our community for all the EMS services, and perhaps we can get a little bit more in detail on those kinds of topics, because I know they're of great interest to me and the community.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Well, great. Look forward to it. And thank you for tuning in. I'd like to once again thank my guests for taking the time to provide us with such great information about the police department and the fire department. I look forward to our upcoming shows. And until next time, I'm your City Councilman Ray Lopez, and thank you, San Antonio.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point. There's smoky.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Cuando la vida es así de dura, graduarse puede ser aún más duro, pero tú puedes ayudar a José y a los estudiantes en tu comunidad a sobreponerse visitando boostup.org.
Abandoned and lost. From the dark, cold streets of the city to a cage in the local shelter, to heaven, your lap.
Did you know that getting up and getting active for just 60 minutes a day is all it takes to help you get stronger, look better, and feel great?
Or that fresh fruits and veggies aren't just healthier and crunchier, they can taste better too?
Eating better and getting more active is easier than you think.
Yeah! Keep watching for some fun and easy ways to discover the magic of healthy living in your life.
America.
Let's get healthy together!